wireless faceplate. You guys have been asking me for this one for a while, and it's finally here. I want to teach you guys exactly how I did this and how I got this whole faceplate system to work. Pops on, pops off, and there's no wires or anything to disconnect. Super easy to do. So in order to do this video, you guys kind of have to watch the LED cosplay eye tutorial. And if you have your own LED eyes and you kind of understand how the system works and you just want to know the way I'm wiring up the magnet system, keep watching, that's fine. But if you haven't put in your LED eyes yet, go watch that video. I'll link it down below. And then you're also going to need to install the magnetic tabs. And I just put that video up recently too. And this is a crucial step to this to actually make the faceplate, have a nice magnetic contact to lock into and actually complete the electrical circuit. So make sure you watch those. And if you're at this step, I'll be showing you exactly how I wired up the whole circuit, what you're going to need, and how you can kind of advance and improve on it. If it's before May 15th, 2020, you guys will have a chance to win this helmet still. So please make sure you go and enter that contest. I want to give this away to somebody, some lucky winner. It's my second helmet giveaway. And if it's after May 15th, 2020, hopefully I'm giving away something else, something new, something better, maybe a helmet, a prop. Hopefully this just keeps growing and going. So this intro is in the future, kind of, because I totally forgot to film the intro before I started recording and showing you guys how to do this. But it worked out kind of cool because now I get to show you this, this is what it looks like. So stay tuned, and I hope you learned something through this video and enjoy. So you followed my other tutorial. You got the magnetic faceplate. So that comes on and off pretty easy now, and it's all lined up. To start this, the first thing you need to make sure, though, is that your magnetic contacts inside the helmet are actually touching and grabbing, that they didn't get warped or anything. Because if they're not going to touch, then there's really no way to do this. So you kind of want to make sure that they're actually grabbing. You can usually lift them up and snap them back into place a little, and they'll kind of, these both lock in perfectly. So the first thing we're going to want to do is actually get the faceplate wired up. And I've already kind of gone ahead and did one wire in a slight fashion that we're going to be doing. So real quick, I want to explain how this electrical circuit works. If you've seen my LED cosplay eye tutorial, you've seen these cool little eBay cosplay lights. And they work with just a simple battery pack, a little AAA battery pack. And they run to two LED eyes that you can actually kind of see through. And I'll turn that on. Go check out my tutorial for how to install these and how these work and where to get them. But you're going to pretty much need these installed before you can move on to this part, unless you've made your own kind of LED eye, and then you're just going to be kind of following this for how to actually, alter the circuit. So this just works, a little on-off switch. And what we're going to utilize, and I'll turn the light back on in a second. So this one works too, right? This one can actually turn on and off. And I'm going to leave this right here on the desk. And what I've done is I've actually taken two of the magnets, and I'll show you when they let the lights come on. But these work in the same fashion where it's actually just breaking up that circuit. So you can see the light come right back on when I click them. And that's all we're going to be doing. We're going to be interrupting the positive and negative wires and replacing them with these magnets. So this way when they touch, it actually completes the circuit. So there are a couple crude ways you can do this, and you can get as creative and clean with it as you want, or you can get as barbaric with it as I kind of have. Now, this isn't going to be the cleanest install. It's just going to be for the sake of the tutorial, and you can spend as much time as you want cleaning this up and making the wires look pretty and nice. That's on your own time. I'm just going to be showing you the basics of the circuit and how to actually get these to work. What you do with that information afterwards is totally up to you. But again, we're using these cool little purse clasp magnets that are this little self-aligning magnets. And this is what we're going to just be using for this whole tutorial. And then a couple wires. You're going to need a little bit more of a wire length because these LED eyes just don't come with enough wire length. I think this is like 20 gauge electrical wire. You can use I think I have some 16 here. You can use even something as small as maybe 20, 22. You just need some extra electrical wire, and you can solder the wires. You can put heat shrink. For this, I'm just going to electrical tape them because I'm going to go back later and clean this up. Because again, this is going to be the giveaway helmet that somebody is going to receive, and I don't want it to look bad. So you've already installed your LED eyes in your mask, but instead of leaving the battery pack mounted inside the mask, you want to have a little bit of a different look. So the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure you cut the battery pack off, and you're going to want to expose some of the wire. Now, if you've never stripped a wire before, get to practicing. You can get wire strippers, or the nippers that actually come with your 3D printer work pretty well for actually just grabbing the sheath of the wire, and you cut just a little bit around it, and then you can pull and strip the wire off. So this is something you just learn over time, how to strip a wire, and sometimes you'll cut it and you'll be mad at yourself, but you'll learn how to do it pretty nicely over time. Or invest in wire strippers. So you can actually see here, I've already gone and ran one of the wires. This is the more barbaric way. And what I've done is I've actually gone and wrapped it underneath the magnet. I cut off about this much wire, like almost 2 inches worth of it. And I've actually gone and tucked it around the magnetic contact, because metal on metal, you know, you're going to get electrical current. And I've wound it underneath it. Now, I did this probably out of order. If I knew I was going to magnetize this faceplate like this and add the wires, what I would have done is actually probably wrap the wire around the back of the magnet like this. So I've actually just taken that wire, wrapped it around the prongs and the tabs, and then when I go to melt and fuse this onto the faceplate, those wires are going to be stuck there pretty secure. And you could drop solder in here to make it as secure and as good of a contact as you want. But that's basically what's happening here. So now this is a nice magnetic contact that'll work with the entire electrical system. I had to get a little more barbaric here because I've gone and done this after the fact. But again, I could easily, you know, unmelt these, pull the magnet out, do this, melt them right back in. That's the benefit of this. But I just want to show you guys how this all works. So I'm going to remove this off of this plate. The worst feeling in the world is when you have enough wire and then you cut it. You barely have enough wire and then you cut it too short. But don't worry, you'll have plenty of time to experience that. So you twist it up a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of fish it around the actual magnet. And there should be a nice channel for me to work with here. There we go. So now it's pulled under, and I'm just going to wrap it around as tight as possible. Now I know there are probably some wire gurus out there watching this, like just banging their head on a desk. But you know what? If it works, and I really don't care. So the wire's underneath, and now what I'm going to try to do is I'm just going to try to tuck the rest of the wires underneath the magnet. And again, when I'm done with this, I'm going to go back and I'm going to melt some plastic around this to keep the wire in there. You could drop super glue in there. You could really do whatever you needed to. If I had a little bit of forethought, I would have just melted these back off and started from scratch. So I got the wire underneath there. It's tucked. I can pull on it and it's not going to go anywhere. Now I have my positive and my negative wires. So these aren't going to touch anymore. They're going to then go to the faceplate. So what you're going to want to do now is determine how you actually want to run the wires down. And just for the sake of holding them in place, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tape them into place so I can start getting a length and figuring out where I want them to run. Okay. So now they're kind of taped in place in the way I'm going to want to run them. And I'm going to leave red as my positive just because it's easier. My blue wire is going to become my negative. So these are kind of the same way I stripped the wires and twisted them together. And the way I'm going to secure this and glue this up, I think I'm going to make it look like... Okay, now I'm going to have to be real careful because I don't have a lot of wire left on this length. But I'm going to shorten this wire. And again, this is more of a how clean do you want it to look thing. So just play around with these circuits. So I have my red wires ran, and now I'm going to run this other red wire, probably about that length. And you can actually super glue these wires into place. The super glue reacts really well with the rubber sheeting on the back. Just make sure if you're going to super glue one of the wires down, you sand the back of the print a little bit, because especially if you've painted it already like I have, the super glue won't stick too well. So again, this is your absolute choice on how you want to do this. You can put heat shrink on it, you can solder it, whatever. I'm only going to attach this for the sake of getting this to work. If you want to go watch soldering tutorials, go watch soldering tutorials, that's fine. And then you cover it up as much as possible. Don't use duct tape, use insulated electrical tape, vinyl electrical tape, or heat shrink. So I have that connected now just to the positives, and it's going to this magnet. And I'm just throw a little bit of tape around it to hold it. So now that's in place, and now when I glue it there, and I can secure the wire there to make it look, you know, just a little nicer, like a nice, like just as clean as possible. Now, if you're confused on how to actually twist the wires together, I kind of realize that somebody watching this might not, you know, understand what I'm doing here. So if you have two ends of wire, and people can debate on the best way to do this all day, but this is how I've done it, and it's worked in the car industry for me for quite some time, and everything else I've done. So you have two ends of wire, right? And you want to fuse them together. So I'll actually, so it's not all frayed out at the top. I'll actually twist it up a little bit so it's nice and straight. And I'll twist both sides. And especially if I'm not going to solder them, what I'll do, I'll cross them just like that And you don't want to make them meet at the base or where the plastic's cut off or the rubber's cut off. I'll do it about halfway, make a perfect X, and then you're actually going to just twist them together in the opposite directions. So now I'm twisting them together, and I'm going to continue down that whole length, twisting them as tightly as possible. Now, I've done a lot of wiring like this and left it after I've taped it. And I've never had a problem with it. If that wire is not going to be disturbed too much, this is usually pretty fine. But if it's going to be in a suit, you're going to be moving around, if it's in your arms or in your torso, I'd probably suggest soldering it. But in all honesty, if this is just sitting right here in the faceplate and never getting disturbed, that's fine. I can actually pull on this pretty well, and this isn't coming apart. I really have to pull to get this to even start budging. So that's a nice connection, and then I would just tape that up. So our positives ran, so now let's do our negative. Okay, we're done with the faceplate side. We have the nice connection right here. Ran it as just simply as possible. It could be a straight line, you could get all fancy with it. This is a part where foresight really comes in handy. Now, I probably would have done all this wiring before I actually glued in and installed the LED eyes. So because now I only have so much room to work with, so much wire length to work with. So planning ahead can really save a project like this, because if I cut these wires too short now, I'd have to pull the LED out, and it'd be a whole mess of a problem. But got lucky, everything fits, and then I'm gonna go back eventually and glue this wire down so it stays, and it just looks a lot nicer. So we're done with the faceplate. So now we need to run the wire side in the helmet. So the magnetic contacts on the helmet are a little different because they're not as fused in as the tabs in the faceplate. We can actually get a little bit more creative with how we're going to actually attach the wires to these. So since it's a little bit hard to see inside the helmet, what I did is I made another raft magnet attachment like I did in the magnet tutorial. So this is what's sitting inside the faceplate, or inside the helmet. And then when the magnet gets locked in there, it wants to kind of auto center. So if you pop this off, so you'll see it there, we'll take the faceplate off, and then that's what's going to be left and revealed. We need to get a wire attached to this. The best, easiest way I think I would do this is the back tab right here. I would actually bend these prongs back up a little bit, because remember we bent them down to hold the washer in place. So I'd bend them up just a little bit, and then we're actually going to go and kind of wrap the wire back around the same way we wrapped it in the faceplate itself. So now I have the tabs kind of bent up a little bit. And all I would do is I would take the wire, wrap it around the tabs right here, and then just bend it down. So I wrap the wire around one tab, bent it down as much as possible. It comes over the back of the washer, more magnetic contact, and then it comes behind the other magnet tab, which is holding the wire in place. So even if this gets pulled on, it's still going to stay there. Again, you can get as creative with this as you want. The better of a connection you can get, that's ideal. That's what you want. So this is nice and secure. So I'm going to go do that on both sides of the helmet. But let's remember what color our wires are. So our red wire, our positive, is going to be on the left side of the helmet. So that's where we're going to put the red wire. Okay, it might be a little bit hard to see, but I have that first wire attached to this magnet the same way I attached it to the raft before, and that's on there pretty good. And let's do the red wire now. Okay, now I got both wires ran. So at this point, we're actually going to stop, and we're going to test our system. Before we start running these wires and make any permanent connections, we're going to stop and make sure that the magnetic contact actually works. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to take these, we're going to strip off a little bit of each end, and we're going to hook it in to our battery pack that we cut apart earlier. So this doesn't need to be a super secure connection. You don't want this to, you're going to want to take this apart again, but just really kind of haphazardly. So again, remember our negative is now our blue wire. So we're hooked up, okay? Now what we can do is feed this under. We're going to turn our battery pack on, and hopefully if everything worked, this should turn on first shot. Yes, it works. So let's turn that off. This way we can see it again. That's beautiful. Oh, I'm so glad that worked. It's like I know what I'm doing. So it's the same circuit that we were talking about. We have now, I think it's, what is it, green on this side, or not green. So red, this is our positive side making contact with our positive wire. Now if it doesn't turn on immediately, it could be a couple things. Maybe your magnets aren't actually contacting. Maybe your raft got bent down a little bit. So you kind of have to troubleshoot the system. What you could do to make sure that this whole system works without the magnets is take this battery pack here, and then you can strip the wires back and actually touch them to each of the magnets. And then the lights, I don't know if you can see that, see them flashing a little bit, the lights should come on. So this will tell me that, hey, you actually have a good connection. The faceplate's good. Now I could have tested that, immediately after finishing this, but for the dramatic effect of the whole thing getting done at once, I wanted to wait. So your faceplate works. And then obviously we know this works. Now we want to actually run the wires a little bit cleaner, get them ran into the helmet. So in this instance, what I would probably do, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of run them to a center point here, and then I'm going to trace them down, and I'm going to actually mount the battery pack to the very back of the helmet. So a neat little trick I picked up while just kind of working on cars and just anything really. If you don't want to permanently secure a wire into place, but you want it to be there for a while, but you want the option to take it back off, what you can do is actually take a little bit of electrical tape, wrap it around the wires, and only glue that spot down. This way, if you ever actually need to get that wire completely out, you can cut it with a razor, pull the wire out, and then you'll just have a little bit of electrical tape stuck glued. If you glue the wires down, when you try to pull them out, what can happen is you can pull the sheathing off, or you could break the wire. So if I ever want to mess with this helmet or move it around again, I'm actually just going to glue these wires down using the electrical tape. So that's glued in place. I threw a little bit of duct tape on it just to hold it while the glue dries. And I'm also going to be manipulating these two wires down here, so I don't want to pull it up. Now again, you can get as crazy or however you want to do this as, however you want. You can put this battery pack, you can make the wire really long and have the battery pack sitting in your pocket. You can put connectors here so you can take the battery pack in and out for whatever reason. But for the sake of this, I'm going to actually connect these wires together, and then I'm going to have the battery pack mounted right in the back of the helmet here. You can mount it somewhere in the jaw, you can mount it somewhere on the side of the face. It's totally up to you. Actually, after a little bit of thought, I did a little bit of testing with the battery pack sitting this low on the back of the helmet. And to put the helmet on and off, it kind of gets in the way. So I'm actually going to move it a little bit higher back to almost the lowest bowl part of the back of the helmet. And I got some Velcro, and I've used magnets before. You can use whatever you want. I've got some Velcro, and I've actually super glued this strip to the battery door, so this you can still get into the batteries. And then I'm going to super glue the opposite side to the back of the helmet, just for adhesion's sake. I also sanded down the spot just a little bit to help everything bond together. All right, so that's in place. And make sure you get super glue all over your fingers like I just did, or else you're not working with super glue. What I'm going to do is actually I'm going to put in a little connector, and a 2-pin wire connector. I don't know how I got these, but they're just a great little tiny connector that's plenty strong for these LED eyes. And I'm actually going to put this in it too, this way they can completely take the battery pack out. This way they're not fumbling in there to change the batteries. I spent many a year under a dashboard of the car, so being able to strip wires without looking is just a it's just a skill and talent you have to pick up. The real trick is learning to solder without looking and trusting that you're doing it perfectly. And that's the battery pack wired in. The super glue I have right now, it's not holding up too well. I need to go get some normal crazy glue. So I just tape the wires down with duct tape, but then you have the battery pack sitting right there. It's not going anywhere, and I can put it on and off just fine, and the battery pack doesn't hit my head. So one last final test. Turn the battery pack on and make sure everything works. That's it. So I can reach in here now and turn the LED eyes on and off with the switch, which is, ideal. And then if it's on, I want to put the helmet on, take the mask off, pops right off. I'd call that a wireless faceplate. There's no plugs or connectors you need to undo. All the wires are self-contained, and that's it. Pops right on and off. This actually turns on and off better than my Dio 3D helmet. I got those to line up much better, and I think I just made better connections to begin with. So guys, that does it for this video. Again, this is just a baseline. You can use any of this information to then expand upon and make a whole bunch of different electrical systems and connections. You can spend all day cleaning up the inside of the helmet, running the wires nice, but I just wanted to show you at its very core how this system works. If it's before May 15th, 2020, please make sure you enter the helmet giveaway contest. Now that this helmet is pretty much done, it just needs a clear coat, and I need to clean up the wires a little bit. This is the helmet that you're gonna have a chance to win. If it's after it, hopefully I'm giving away some type of other helmet or some even better prize. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. It would be absolutely amazing, and it would just make everything much easier. And then you'll get to stay up to date on a lot of these little tutorials I'm putting out. Again, this is the free Thingiverse Mark 85 version 1 helmet. Again, great helmet. I absolutely love this thing. So if you're just looking for a cool Iron Man helmet to print, this is honestly one of the easier ones out there. Less parts. You can print it in 4 parts, and with some slicing, it'll even fit on an Ender 3. If you guys have any comments, questions, concerns, you want to know something else, or you have a question about the system in a little more of an advanced light, drop a comment or message me on Instagram. I'll talk your ear off about all this stuff. I do have more tutorials coming out involving electronics and faceplates and helmets. If you're wanting how to motorize the helmet, I have that one in work too. So please stay tuned for that. I know everybody's asking me that, so it's hard. Motorizing a helmet is not an easy thing. It's not as easy to explain like this. So just please stay tuned and be patient for that. I really appreciate everything you guys have done for me and all the continued support and love you guys have all been giving me. None of this is possible without you, so I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching and have a good day.